All right. Hypothetically, we're live. Hypothetically, people are here. And hypothetically, I should be able to hear myself in 2 seconds. Perfect. All right. How's it going, everybody? And welcome to Shin Megami Tensei Network, link 241. I'm here with possibly my most, and I didn't even know it, one of my most anticipated guests of the year. And I'm not just saying that to stroke their ego. I have so many things I want to talk to this guest about. I'm going to do my best to reel myself and the guest in so this doesn't become like a 19-hour-long TED Talk. But my special guest today is the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Crisden. How are you doing today, Sean?
After an intro like that, I guess I'm doing really well. I feel special. This is nice. I'm tingly. I'm tingling.
Now, I didn't want to set the stage too big, but this is kind of a monumental episode, not just for this podcast, because anytime anyone besides me in my bedroom are talking to myself, that's a big deal. Because you, unless there's like some weird French or Japanese outlet out there who's beaten me to it, you are the first voice actor to interview anyone in regards to your role in slash post announcing that you are in Shin Megami Tensei 5. So congratulations on landing that role, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a lot of hard work. There may have been some casualties, but yeah, I was super excited about it because I'm not as big a fan of the series as I should be. I'll put it that way. I played Persona on PS1, and I think it was Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne was on probably PS2. But that's as far into the series as I've gotten. But now I'm so steeped in lore.
Well, that's the nice thing about the series is, like, honestly, I always find it funny when a voice actor is either really into it or not. Of like, there's no pre-existing knowledge you needed. Everything's such a fresh start. Like, no one's gonna be like, I can't believe you voiced a character in 5, but you didn't play 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right. Well, the cool thing about this too was the dev team was so great because every session you got a full history of the lore and what was happening and all the characters. So even if you didn't care or you didn't want to know, you got to know. So they pulled us all on board. They were fantastic.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was recorded, the English localization was all recorded, the voices at Cup of Tea Production, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, that was a really big surprise because literally every other Persona and SMT game beforehand, I guess not counting Nocturne. Nocturne was also Cup of Tea. But all of those were all done at PCB, so even me, for the longest time, I was asking people at that studio, I'm like, all right, when are you guys going to talk about SMT5? Because it's like, it was one studio doing it for so long. It was like, of course, it's got to be this and all. So, also, because I'm very terrible at doing a job as my host, and even though this game's not out yet, and a lot of these names, as you'll probably soon discover when SMT5 comes out, there's a lot of fun, long, new names that are not English-friendly. But yes, you are playing, and I'm going to butcher the first name, but definitely, is Hayao Koshimizu.
Very good. Yeah, that's it.
So, Koshimizu, I want you to know, immediately became like a panty dropper character the second they dropped on the character. Like, and I just kind of want to like to know, because we just recently discovered there was a dub, which is so funny to think of, like, because if you were kind of aware of behind the scenes, it was like, yes, there's going to be one that's happening, but a lot of the times that stuff gets pushed back very close to release. But it was very funny if characters were like, there's a chance this man may only be voiced in Japanese, but good news, he is a very sultry tone. Was there any pressure then for you before that English trailer lead up of them being like, what if like someone like hears my voice and is like, not sultry enough?
You mean I couldn't go?
Hi, my name is Koshimizu. I'm in charge here. And in addition to being Japan's Prime Minister.
You mean like that?
Yeah, he's part Prime Minister, part Hall Monitor.
Well, I mean, Kenjiro Tsuda is the Japanese VA, and so listening to what he did and thinking, I gotta match him, and capture the same energy and vibe of the character during the whole dub process was just, especially when we had to actually dub to a lot of the cinematics, because that's catching the pace and cadence, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners know that know about dubbing, and matching lip flaps somewhat in another language that weren't meant for English. So trying to deliver the performance and keep true to what Kenjiro did and the feel of the character of Koshimizu, and keeping him who he is, which I can't say a lot. I don't want to give any spoilers, but staying true to that was actually pretty challenging. It was more challenging than some of the other roles I've done, but came out pretty darn awesome. I think I'm really happy with him. I think the game is amazing, and I'm looking forward to playing it.
So thankfully, what was funny is literally a week ago, probably as of this recording, me and a bunch of other people were like, "There, maybe we'll get a demo soon. Maybe I'll have an inkling of what this game is like in actuality." And by some miracle, because we usually have very bad luck, as the ad wants to play very loudly here, we usually have very bad luck getting any preview copy, because even though it's in the name, it is not a guaranteed you are ever going to get anything. So what was funny is Friday I got a copy of the game, which I may or may not be allowed to say, but this would be such a weird interview if I was like, you've done a great job, even though I don't know where I've heard you from in this. So I'm going to just break an embargo and just let you know, I've gotten to your character. Absolutely great. You and the whole cast is really good in terms of like two things that I liked a lot in terms of A, the trailer, and B, actually now getting my hands on the game myself. It is so nice to have a breath of fresh air for voice actors of like, I knew maybe two people in this entire cast, which makes me so excited.
It was amazing to me because I didn't know. I knew maybe one or two that I'd heard of the other talent, but when you get a fresh new cast, so you're not even sure what to expect from them, and everybody comes in and delivers. Listening to everything that everyone did, it's just, oh wow, this really came together. Solid performances all around. The characters feel great, because a lot of times, it's hit or miss when you get the English cast to come in and dub a game, and the quality can vary.
As a voice actor, I don't even know if you followed it at all, but as someone who watches as much like things dubbed from Japanese or even just other languages to English, the reception to Squid Game's dubbing has been like, where have you people been? Like, no offense to any of the English voice actors, but like, spoilers, guys, this is not Netflix's first Korean dub. They dub all of their shows, and they are just of that quality. So when people were like, have you heard this? I'm like, guys, this is the last 5 years of my life. I don't know what we're complaining about now.
Well, it's a funny thing, because when I watch something that as a North American, an American English speaker, and I watch it, I always watch it in its native language. It's sacrilege because I'm a voice actor. I should listen to what my peers are doing. Yes. But there's something that I want to maintain in terms of the authenticity and the original intent and cultural intent of something that's delivered in its native language. So yeah, I'll watch it, or I'll watch it with subs. My Mandarin is very poor at this point. I used to watch a lot in Mandarin. My Japanese is terrible, but I want to have that authentic experience. And if I'm really into it, then I'll watch it with the English dubs as well. Just not only from a technical standpoint of me as a professional voice actor, but also to see, does it translate the same? And where things changed, and language and meaning are often just confused through the translation of language. So it almost makes it a whole different experience. So I have not watched Squiddy McBitty yet. So everybody's watching. Squid Game is the thing everybody wants, and I haven't watched it yet. And I'm torn with how I should enjoy and sample it now.
I would say, because I'm not even finished it yet. Like, what's funny is, even though like my wife watches like dramas all the time, I think because it was so popular, it actually pushed her off of wanting to watch it right away. She's like, it's too popular. I don't want to. I don't like it.
Only the hipsters watch that.
Yeah. So it was kind of one of those things of like, but I had seen bits of it, and I was like, I think she'll really like it. But we've been going literally because it's a very heavy show. Like one episode maybe like every 1 or 2 nights. And I've sampled all of them, but it is one of those things of, I think especially because of how much I like follow a lot of those actors, they got such an all-star cast, like with all the actors they chose with it. I would almost feel like a disrespect of like, I'm sure the English voice actors are doing as good of a job as they can, but it's like, as someone who actually likes a lot of those actors, I want to hear them doing that role because they're doing a really great job. Like, it's not an enviable position to be in for dubbing almost anything like that, but I think it would be like someone... Like, I look at this as if someone told me, hey, did you hear the Indonesian dub for Iron Man 3 really sucks? And I'm like, you know what? I'm sure they did the best job they could. But I'm still going to listen to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was similar when I watched Dark on Netflix, which I watched it in the original German, which fantastic, very strange series, but really enjoyable if you're into sci-fi / not quite horror, thriller possibly. And I started with the English dub because I guess I'm just a fool, but they tried their best. And it's just like when you watch anime and you have your favorite anime series, and most of us prefer to watch the original Japanese audio version rather than the English dub. But some English dubs rise to infamy, we shall say. But some are really good. But I tried to start that series in particular with the English dub, and it just wasn't coming together. So
well, it is funny because I think in terms of shows, it's very much maybe 80-20%. 80% probably watched in its native tongue, 20% maybe 30 or 40 because it's definitely become a little more balanced out. But I feel like with games, it's so interesting, especially kind of going back to like Atlas games like with Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. People kind of forget this, but we didn't get Japanese voiceover until 2017. This was a thing that was not allowed to leave Japan, so I think it's definitely kind of sided us a lot into one corner of like, now we get mad when there's not an English dub. There are certain games in this franchise that have not gotten dubbed just because it cost extra money, whereas before that would be like blasphemy of like, you guys want this thing you complain about, but it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Of like, if you choose to do a dub, they will be very hypercritical most of the time. But then the other one is like, if you don't do it now, then it almost feels like you're getting less of an experience. Even though the people who are doing these Japanese voice acting are doing a tremendous job, there's just that language disconnect for so many fans out there.
Right. And there's also a stylistic disconnect too, because especially when you're looking at the native Japanese as a language, and particularly through the lens of anime and video games, it's very stylized in terms of how lines are delivered, how action and emotion is implied, not just culturally, but stylized to the sense of anime and video game acting as a medium. So when, as an English voice actor, to listen to, say, Kenjiro's lines, and to try to, I wanted to match that similarly, which is usually the call to most voice talent who are doing dubs for Japanese voice work in English, that there comes a point where you decide, well, how closely do I want to try to match what the native talent did? And how well will that translate in the context of English? And that's one of the reasons why especially within the anime world, we have such very stylized, specific styles of delivery that you won't hear in something that falls outside of that genre in terms of a narrative or dramatized interpretation of a cinematic voice acting experience. So you get these things that are really, really stylized. I mean, in Shin Megami Tensei 5, as I'm listening to Kenjiro's lines, who was the Japanese voice talent, and looking to match him, and one of the lines that I think is in the, I think it made it to the trailer with Koshimizu is, "Thank you, I admire your courage." He says that line, where Kenjiro is sort of like a, "Arigato, kimi no yuki ni kanshin." It's like, and you hear that there's this dynamic lilt to it that changes that I can't, as an English speaker, speaking to other English speakers, that there becomes a wall there, just in the delivery because of the style, because of the differences in culture, and ultimately the differences in the actors who are portraying these roles. So that's one of the things that I often am very critical of and very cognizant of when approaching a role, especially if someone else did it.
No, definitely. And yeah, you have to like kind of ride that line, and it's always different from project to project of like, okay, hey, I'm doing this character, but am I doing this character just like they did, or because sometimes different clients want different things and different performances for sure. One of the funny things I've noticed is, and I don't know if this would ever get patched because it's almost kind of weird, of like, it's such a funny oversight in the game that like a minuscule amount of people would ever notice. There's a thing, and this is very common in a lot of games now, for lots of text heavy moments you can just press auto. Then once the character's done talking, it progresses. Done talking, progresses, so you don't have to keep pressing the button. And what I find so funny comparing the version of SMT5 is, so at launch, there's only English. So you are the only option I have, but I would still do English anyway. Basically, it's one of those things to kind of deter importing. Of like, let's say American copies got out first, and then a whole bunch of Japanese people wanted to import it, or vice versa. So that's why they kind of separate it, and also saves on memory and blah, blah, blah. But what's so funny about it is you can tell the auto cue stops are all matched to Japanese, and a lot of the performances are actually shorter and quicker than the Japanese counterparts. So kind of going off of them, normally a lot of the time it'll just be, once it's done, there's a beat, and then it continues. But there are certain times for longer dialogues or diatribes and stuff where it's like, wait a second, okay, now the Japanese one's done, okay, now we go to the next line. So it's really funny of like, I'm sure that's an engineering nightmare to change, but it is funny of like, I even picked that up of like, it is a very different, even though the performances are so different in terms of their tone, how different it also changes the pace of it if you're not kind of manually on it like that.
Yeah, it's behind the scenes and under the hood. It's quite an event. It's a huge orchestration to get all of it to work, even with something as simple as dubbing. And it's the same for anime. It's the same for video games. And for those that have done it or that want to do it, and you see, okay, well, it's the 3 beeps, and I got to match the beeps and do this. I'm a musician too, so it really starts to play with the elements of my brain that understand rhythm and tempo and timing and the beauty of silence and spacing, and to make that fit especially when you're watching the cinematics. So you're watching the cinematics, and just like when you're doing anime, you have picture that you're syncing to, and the good old lip flaps are going, and you're all right. You watch it once or twice, and you're in the session. So the other talent may be there, the writers are there, the producer and the director are there, and you're like, all right, I gotta sound like I know what I'm talking about here. Okay, hold on, let me see. And I'll say, okay, we're going to watch it.
I find ADR through all of my time talking to different actors, and even like kind of looking at the engineering process, because I've had to do a lot of audio engineering in my time. ADR is that thing that sounds like the easiest job in the world until that like third beep happens. Like until you're there in front of it, and you're making the lip flaps happen, because like there's no thing in your head going of like, so you're like almost like kind of like double acting of like you're acting for the sound, but you're also making it so the lips don't look like a game from 1995 or whatever. And it's one of those funny things as well of like, as games continue to get more advanced, and situations like this happen, it's almost like you're constantly fighting yourself. Of like back in the PS2 and PS3 days, lip movements were not like as intricate and stuff as they are now. And even looking at something like Shin Megami Tensei 5, the comparison between a pre-rendered cinematic and an engine normal, hey, I'm flapping my lips up and down, is very, very different and stands out quite a lot. Sure. I actually think the final product is very, very good, especially with the amount of cinematics and stuff there have been. But what I find so funny is I keep thinking of this in the back of my head, and I'm meaning to ask somebody, do you ever, like, when you're looking at a situation like that for trying to match over something, do you just think to yourself, whoever's voicing the main protagonist, in this case Casey, do you just think, Casey, you have it so easy. You're matching nothing. Your job is to go, It's like you've got maybe 5 or 6 lines. They're delivered wonderfully, but then thinking at the same time of like, okay, it's just such a different kind of thing.
Well, it depends on how the dice are rolled and what you get. I'll get games where I get to do prelay, where everything gets matched to what I do, and that's fantastic. Or when I do animation, and it's prelay, then you just do what you do, and so you're in the moment and you're acting, and it's great, and I'm a thespian, that sort of thing. And there's another element of your brain that constantly has to be on and focused when you're doing ADR or dubbing, and you're matching lip flaps and you're listening for the beeps, because you're naturally trying to emote and act and bring all of these elements to the table to make the performance appropriate for whatever the media is. But now you have this whole technical clock ticking in your brain that's trying to make sure things sync appropriately and match, so that, and there's a lot that can be done in post-production, obviously, but also so that this group of people who are there on the session with you don't think, wow, this guy doesn't know anything at all. He's just not doing anything that's working. None of this sounds like it's even human, and to make all of that work, it's really a skill, and there are a lot of people who do it really, really, really well, where it's almost frightening. There's just some innate sense, and you start to develop it. And for me, I'm not saying I do it really, really well. I'm okay, but I credit part of my brain that has developed musically, that can key into making that little technical aspect work while still delivering the emotive and human quality of the performance. So that's something that a lot of people will often ask, well, what's something you think I need? What skills do I need so that I can do this? I want to do this professionally. So I say, well, you get a leg up if you're a musician, that's for sure. Not only because for dubbing, but also in the sense of character creation. Because I have students sometimes that I coach, and I talk about creating characters. And if you understand musical concepts like pitch, melody, rhythm, tempo, all of these things come in to create different characters. Before you even touch an accent or a dialect or additional mouth work, those core elements of basic musicality get fed into the type of character you're creating. And if you change one or two, you have a totally different character before you do accents, before you do dialect, before you do mouth work. So it's usually something where I usually say that pre-existing musicians, it's like a pre-existing condition to voice acting. You have a leg up to understanding something a bit more keenly right out of the gate.
No, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I say that as like, I always feel there's a funny disconnect because like my only musical experience has been I learned percussion at a really young age, which kind of meant like learning a whole bunch of different things for it. But I've always felt like the different thing of like I would in a million years never consider myself a musician, even though I love playing something like whether it be like a xylophone or a drum set or like anything like that. I'd be like, no, just don't. I'm not giving myself that level of credit for it. But I totally see how those skills can definitely aid you a whole lot more than people might kind of think, because you might think like, okay, well, what can kind of learning music and timing really do to a situation like that? But I think in terms of if you just had voice acting, it would be a little bit different. But yeah, for something like dubbing especially, there are so many kind of added benefits that you never really hear about. It is always one of those funny ones, and you kind of touched on it earlier. I always find it so funny of when people talk to voice actors, then what becomes one of their like most questions, or like one of the things they get asked all the time is like, how do I become one? I have talked to voice actors for so long, and I always just find it so funny of like, that has like never been like a thing in my mind of like, I like, because like when you think about it, that's like going up to someone and being like, how do I do your job? Which in one sense is very flattering, and then on another, which is funny because of how competitive something like voice acting is for it, it's got to be such like a funny like double-pronged sort of like, yeah, hey, here's how you do it, and then it almost becomes like that metagame of like you were saying, of like there are tons of voice, like it's very rare to find someone who is just a voice actor. They don't do any coaching, They don't do anything else on the side, so it's like you're juggling all of these plates at once that almost kind of feed into each other constantly. But I always do find it funny of like, no one ever, at least no one is ever like me, of when I hear someone's a voice actor, I think, oh, that's really cool, tell me about that experience for you and how you got there, and it's never like, oh, I want to do that, it's like my voice goes into the microphone for other people to judge, not for me. No one's coming up to podcasters being like, how do I do what you do? They know the threshold is very low. They're aware what it takes.
They can peek behind the curtain. They know about the magic glitter dust. I know.
So a very roundabout way of actually getting to something I probably should have touched on 20 minutes ago. But yeah, so for you, how did you kind of get into this? Because as I've looked at all of your different roles, I asked myself two things. One, how have I not heard of this man sooner? And two, it seems like I need to just get you more consistent work, because all the things I've seen you in are fantastic. I just don't see enough of you. My problem is you're great. I just don't hear enough of your voice.
Why, thank you. You sure do know how to flatter. One is that for the past 10 years, about 70% of the work I've done has been audiobooks. So I'm an award-winning, celebrated audiobook narrator. So in fact, in December, I will be narrating my 500th audiobook. So I do a lot of long-form narration, and that was about 70% of my workload. But being a big goofy kid who likes playing video games and watching cartoons, I said, you know what? I want to start transitioning into more games and more animation, because I'm sort of burning out on long form narration right now. And me, since my brain is let's go ride our bikes. Look, a kite. Whee! You know, I'm always trying to do something with my very short attention span. Now that's where I'm being called in terms of my voice work. But I got my start. Picture it, Sicily, 1632. And so I got my start, for Golden Girls fans out there, maybe. I was
dozens. The crossovers in the dozens. There's dozens of us like getting that joke.
There are dozens of us. That's right. I love the Golden Girls. But so I was playing in a rock band for a long time. So I'm a vocalist and a guitar player. Like I mentioned, the music thing.
What does this man not do?
And I do it all. You want your laundry done? This is your guy. And that sort of led itself, and I'm also, again, it sounds like here are all the things that I do. I am fabulous. Also a martial artist and a martial arts instructor. And so I was playing in a rock band, and somebody had asked me, because I had all sorts of the typical mindless onstage banter, that is me, as you are hearing right now, between songs. And someone said, hey, your voice is great. I love you. Would you ever consider narrating a product launch? And I thought, I guess. I don't know anything about it. Sure. I know how to work with a microphone. That may be something. And it sort of started, and I went in and did this very simple product narration that I can't even remember what it was for. And I was in maybe 30 minutes or so in the studio. And I said, okay, this is what we'll pay you, and yada, yada. And I realized how much they were going to pay me, and that they were fools for doing this. And at the time, I was also working a sort of corporate middle management job, and said, wow, I'm making more money than I am with my soul-sucking day job. So this may be something to do. And then I put that on the back burner, and I ended up doing more on-camera work, because, again, as a martial artist, I did a bunch of commercials, but then I had the opportunity to be in I don't want to say it. The Last Airbender, a film which shall not be named. There is no The Last Airbender movie in Ba Sing Se. But I was in the live action version of that as a Fire Nation soldier. And that sort of started me on the on-camera front. But one thing that I realized when I started doing a lot more on-camera work with commercials and some films, that I am very lazy. So
you're like, how can I do this acting thing without changing my clothes?
Precisely. And the ongoing joke, every time somebody interviews me or they talk to me in the studio, and now most of the people who know me say, do you have on pants at this moment? And I say, maybe. What can I do where I don't have to put on clothing? So thanks to the pandemic, you don't have to put on clothing at all. Most of us voice actors work from home. So I tried to find, again, I was talking about how just utterly lazy I am. I said, well, I like the acting thing. I'm very creative that way, but I don't like the waking up at 4 a.m. doing hair and makeup and learning lines and memorizing things and then doing blocking and then all the shooting. I'm very lazy. I don't want to do it. So when I thought about the voice acting thing, I said, well, maybe I could do a little more voice acting. That's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of stuff that I like in terms of the game. I'm a big gamer and anime and cartoons and stuff. So I said, I could probably do that. So in November 2009, I decided to try to pursue voice acting as a full-time gig. And by May 2010, I was a full-time voice actor. I had quit my job, and I may be very lazy, but I'm sort of the shrewd lazy. So I always find ways to maximize peak efficiency of my laziness, which just so happens to also open a lot of doors and make me seem like I'm competent in a lot of things. That's as best as I can describe it. So I was able to that quickly go full time as a voice talent, and then I just worked my hiney off and built and built and built and networked and bridged, and then I moved to Southern California, because at that time I was living in Southern Arizona, which I currently reside in now because I moved back. So then I moved to LA and paid my time there and built my network, and then decided, oh, I just want to go back to the desert to be a misanthropic desert hermit. Home de dum dum. So I ended up coming back to the desert and built a studio here, and I do now the overwhelming majority of my work I do from here. It also coincides with the COVID-19 pandemic, which is making this huge shift in the industry where a lot of talent, voice talent, are now recording remotely because nobody wants the toilet paper zombie plague. And I think that's going to be quite the change in the industry, because also a lot of the voice seekers, be they the production houses, animation studios, the game developers, are seeing that, hey, they don't really have to be here, and we can actually do things slightly more efficiently, assuming that they meet our technical requirements for audio. And so I think as a whole, this will be a great thing for people looking to get into voice acting, because previously, if you weren't essentially in Austin, Vancouver, or LA, Atlanta's actually really hot right now too, you were overlooked for a great many things. But now that location and geographic proximity isn't necessarily a huge barrier of entry. And I think in the future it will be even less so. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing for folks. Assuming you have the technical know-how to be able to record clean audio and ideally edit. Like, I spend a lot of time in studio, so I'm, for all intent and purpose, technically an audio engineer. I do a lot of music production and things as well. But that helps with being the total package for those that want to get into it. Where rather than just being completely dependent on another engineer and another studio space to go in and record. So even some of the stuff I've done in the past couple of months, huge ensemble records, a lot of animation, it's all been remote. And everyone's been on Zoom and Source Connect or ISDN, and we've just been recording stuff that way. And so far it's working. We shall see what happens in the future. But right now it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I think that did I ramble too much?
No, that was like almost like if you could fit your history into like 2 or 3 tweets, you got it all perfectly. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain about this, because this always comes up a lot, I think, especially from like a fan perspective, and as someone who also plays a lot of games, you might be able to kind of have a unique purpose about this, because I think people always get surprised. I almost feel like it's a new thing now that like this generation of voice actors now actually like the products that they do stuff in. Like, it was so many. I feel like in the 90s and early 2000s, it was like, oh yeah, I'm in this game. Let me know how it is. I'm not playing it. So it's.
I don't play video games.
Yeah, I'm too busy voicing car commercials and Kellogg's. But the funniest thing about it though is now, from a fan's perspective, and kind of going back to why we were so excited seeing the voice cast getting announced and being like, oh my god, thank god we don't know these people, was like, nothing wrong with like those familiar faces and familiar voices, but it's like burnout is never indicative of someone's performance usually, but it is one of those things of like, it's not fun if you like, similarly with like this was more of a big deal a couple years ago in Hollywood, but like, no one has anything against Scarlett Johansson, unless you're maybe Disney lawyers right now. No one has any problems with her. That lady was in way too many movies a couple years ago. No one had any problem with her. She was doing a great job, but we did not need her being in that many movies just because she was the hot, big girl thing at the time. And that can definitely kind of happen with voice actors of like, hey, ex-actor, I'm not going to name and make anyone awkward on this show, you're doing a great job, but you're doing that job a lot in the same way. And as like a fan, you kind of you ride that interesting line of being like, I like you as a person, but I want to hear new things, because you don't want to just kind of keep getting the same bowl of cornflakes every day. Nothing wrong with cornflakes, but it's nice to get that fresh blood in there. And it is always one of those funny things of like, I think especially with an industry like voice acting, it is almost like a very kind of protective circle of things, whether like how deep or how big into it you are, of like, it is very much kind of like a club, and how you get in there, everyone's story is kind of different, but it is always interesting of like, for as many like success stories as there are out there, there are so many, kind of going back to what you said about before, it's like, hey, if you weren't in Austin, LA, or New York, good luck getting a voice acting job. Like, you better be the best voice actor ever, and they have to come to you, because it's 9 out of 10 times you got to come crawling up to every audition you can.
That's right, and it's it's sort of indicative of many industries in their own sort of little microcosms. They sort of cannibalize themselves, where especially in anime and in the American dubbing circuit, it's a really small group of people. You've heard the same folks again and again and again and again. And that's cool when they're talented and they can do it and they love it, and that works for everyone. But at some point, as a fan, you want something fresh and new, because a lot of times folks get typecast. You remember them from 7 other roles they had, and it's hard to then create that partition of this new character because it's still relating to the other character. And on the other end of it, from the production and finance side of it, that, yeah, it's a business. So much like we see in major motion pictures or television shows, we see a lot of actors and actresses get cast in roles not because they're the best fit for the role, not because they're bringing the most to the realization of that character and the screenplay, but because people show up to watch them or people show up to listen to them. So that helps the bottom line of the production. So we're sort of juxtaposed against the idea of, we want this thing to make money. It's got to make money. Say we're going to be here in pictures and you're going to make money. That sort of thing, versus the idea of finding the best talent for a particular role. And that's always been the challenge, right? There's somebody who's in their bedroom right now who may, in fact, is listening to this podcast and just rubbing their hands and gritting their teeth because they know how good they are, but nobody's casting them. Or they haven't gone out and they're like me. They like staying in the darkness and solitude of the crypt and just haven't gone out to expose themselves to get that level of notoriety so that they can be booked, or they don't have the experience, but they have the talent, and so there's always going to be that. And it's something that in many ways is insurmountable. It's sort of tied hand in hand and well interwoven into the whole process of our media consumption. So when we get fresh blood and something happens, and I say this not only as a talent, but also as a fan of gaming and anime, that then it's something neat. Like, wow, this is really cool. I've never heard this voice before. Or this person is bringing something totally unique to this that I've never heard. And that's fantastic, because suddenly that property, that character, is something unique in and of itself, rather than having heard 8 other characters that sound just like that. And sometimes we need that archetype, right? We need that and that familiarity and comfort of a character. But sometimes, I want some ice cream in my cornflakes. So
yeah, and I mean, like, there's definitely, because, like I said, it is such a weird fine line, because you don't ever want it to make it just seem like, oh, you guys get all the jobs, so this is why we don't want you. But like, there are even situations where it's the opposite, where it's like, no, you should not recast this. Like, this you need to keep this the way it is. Like, with a good example this year is, like, look at how when Amazon did the new Evangelion movie, they could have 100% just gotten that Netflix cast, and no one would have had any complaints. But I think they knew in the long run that it meant way more to get that original cast who did all those other movies and did that entire original run, to get them to come back and do it one last time. I think was such a a win. And then guess what? 5 or 10 years later, I guarantee you this is going to happen. I bet all 4 of those movies get redone with that entire new Netflix cast, because, hey, why not? This is a new thing to sell to people, and that's a new audience that might could be there. So it's one of those funny things of, like, there are so many cases of both, like, examples of good and bad for it. One of my favorite examples, I think, with games of, like, fantastic human beings, but made me and so many people I know groan entirely, because kind of going back to this feels so corporate, was I will never forget when Square Enix came out and made a big deal, and it is so rare for video game companies to ever care about who's voice acting in their games, because in most cases you're lucky if you get credited.
That's right.
And so when Square Enix came out and said, here's the cast of Avengers, and you went, hey, I know that guy, I know that guy, I know that girl, and there's nothing wrong with any of those people, but it's like seeing the face you've seen 100 times be the face you've also seen 100 different times was just such a thing of like, nope, that ain't it, Chief. I do not need this interpretation of this character. And it was one of those things of like, all of those actors do a great job, but it is just like, collectively, it is the equivalent of dipping milk in white toast.
Yeah. But it's something we're going to see again and again, and also understanding that obviously we all have our particular opinions about what we want to see, and none of us will ever. We can't please all of us. You can't please all of the people all the time. But there are many decisions, especially as of late, that seem to be extremely suspect.
Oh my god! Like so many, yeah. Because this was another thing I wanted to ask you. So many sometimes of like, is it hard to ask this question without kind of not having "why not me" syndrome? Of like, it is hard to say that sometimes the voice acting industry and the acting industry in general is almost like a very incestuous industry. But then as soon as you say that, everyone who is in that industry says, well, that's not how it is. That's not how it is. Well, no, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Whereas, like, you kind of have to have some level of, like, reflection against it. It's like, we're not saying, like, you're doing anything, like, we're not saying, like, X person is the problem. It's more of an underlying, like, structure of how this was built. Because guess what? In the 90s, when a lot of voice acting was getting big, you had to beg to get someone to do voice acting. So when you're wondering, hey, why did the guy who played Yu-Gi-Oh! Did a handful of porn in the early 2000s? That guy needed any job he could. They were like, listen,
needed money.
It was not a competitive field back then. It was like, hey, here's $20. Will you talk into this microphone, please?
Well, the interesting thing, too, is that once, basically there was a shift when, in America, when Robin Williams was cast as Genie in Aladdin. Because that showed that you could bring in someone who was not a voice actor but was a well-known celebrity and a star, and obviously, you know, a fabulous talent in his own right, but put them into an animated feature for kids, and it would boost your bottom line. That people would go see it. Whoa, it's Robin Williams. You know, let's go see Robin Williams. That added an additional draw. Now that opened up a whole other crazy can of worms in the fact that now, so not even just for voice actors that you've heard before, but now you can bring folks who have no voice acting background to speak of, but are actors, and bring them into films and games and anime and animation. And now we'll be bumping that bottom line up because we have, you know, I don't even want to say the names.
We're weeks away from a TikToker being the lead in a movie. We just we don't know when or who, but someone who made a TikTok at one point, some executive's kid is like, no, that guy, you got to get that guy.
Yeah. But of course, because let's look at the number of followers. Let's look at their social media sashimi. Let's look at their social media influence and see, hey, we know that we can snag at least half of those numbers by default to see whatever this media production is that we're putting them in. So again, those dollars talk. So they look appealing. It doesn't necessarily serve the media or the production in terms of its artistic merit or integrity, unless, you know, maybe the person is actually really good at what they do. But those dollars talk. And that's something that, in a sense, it corrupts most industries. You know, once we are we're chasing money rather than chasing artistic integrity and authenticity and serving, if it's an intellectual property, we're serving the property the best that we can. So that's always going to be an issue. But yeah, of course there's going to be a TikToker. I've seen castings where they literally ask in the casting on the sides, list your social media profiles and number of followers.
I want you to know, it is nothing frustrates me more than when I see that of like, I am not someone who streams. I'm not going to be like, I'm doing the best I can with this product that is literally, as I told you before the show started, held together with actual duct tape. But what's funny is like, I think at all times, if one person's listening to me, I think that is a tremendous success. Like right now we have 69, no joke intended, people listening to us live, and I'm super appreciative of everyone watching and listening live.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
But it is one of those funny things of, yeah, when I see those requests, it's like, I hate, and I understand why from the business perspective of it, of like, kind of going back to, I don't expect or assume I'm getting a copy of Shin Megami Tensei 5. If I was doing this exact same show, but with a 10th or even 100th of the audience, same quality, same everything, there's a very good chance I would not have gotten that game early, and that's just like the world we live in terms of whether it be covering things, getting a role in things, because sadly, it is so much more, in no matter what field you're in or what you're doing, it is very little how you are doing the job, it is how well you know people who are around that kind of job you want to do.
You have spoken the very honest truth. I mean, when a lot of people, I've given talks at schools and in interviews, and they say, well, how did you do what you did? Because you seem like you're kind of slow and dumb, so we're curious. You know, this sort of thing.
That's a hard class there, dang.
Yeesh, I'm getting a little nervous. And they'll ask that. And I've actually, I had to find a way to basically quantify and qualify what I did. Because my background, like I came out of the inner city in Philadelphia where, it's just drug use, gunshots are a regular occurrence.
A lot of good food.
All the kids I grew up with, really good food. Oh man. Now, if there's one detriment to living in the desert, and I live out in the desert, man. I am like I'm on 3 1/3 acres out. I'm outside of. There ain't much out here. Cacti, tumbleweed, scorpions, rattlesnakes.
You gotta be careful because I grew up there, so I'm just saying.
Hey, that's right. But I love it. I came back, right? So I am in the desert. I'm not even in any of the city areas, because a rough and tumble guy here. That the thing I miss the most is the food of both coasts, of L.A. and of Philly and New York, and I should be 500 pounds. I love to eat. I love food. Ooh. So that's the one thing I miss. If there's anything that I have to go back for, it's food. In fact, I'll be in Burbank for a signing, actually, for Shin Megami Tensei 5 at Game Realms on I think it's the 12th or 13th. 13th. See, I'm glad you know. See, I'm terrible at my job.
Oh, hey, the dang worldwide releases make it tough. Yeah, 11 for Japan, 12 for the rest of the world, yes. 13 for Californians who want to get their copies signed by the elite of the elite.
Oh, you. Yeah, we're all gonna be there. So that's gonna be pretty fun. And I'm gonna stuff my face. They're like, "Do you want to come out?" Yeah, I guess I can eat. I guess I could fit some food in me. So that's the whole thing. But yeah, I grew up in the inner city, and I never would have imagined this for myself. I always tell people the kids who are in my neighborhood that I knew are either dead or in jail now. So this is a very unlikely outcome for me. I had a best buddy who lived about a block and a half away, who he's a world famous photographer. And we often ask ourselves, how did this happen? We're not quite sure how we did what we did. But it's a challenging thing, but I had to try to figure out a way to explain it, not only to other people, but to myself, because I'm up at night sweating, looking at the ceiling. How did I get here? How did I do these things? And the long story short is I came up with this thing called the Sporth method, which I'll spare you the details because my wife she'll hear me talking about it in an interview. She says, "Are you telling them that again?"
The fact that your wife loves you enough to listen to your interviews is genuinely, that's a sign of true love. I remember when I met my wife, she would literally put on, because these are weekly shows, she would put on my podcast to quote unquote listen, but they would definitely be my I need help falling asleep material, which I'm sure this is a great help fall asleep material to people. Yeah. So like she even eventually got out of that. She's like, "No, I'm good. I'll just take 2 NyQuil instead. You can just put it on in the background."
Perhaps a large mallet. You may apply that to my cranium. Yeah, well, I didn't even say my wife's listening. I might just tell her, "I talked about sports again, honey." And she'll, oh, Sean, oh.
The lip smack. Yeah, you don't even need any more. It's just the lip smack and the sun.
Yep. Yep, you know what I'm saying. And I basically broke it down into, you need the Sporth method. And I tell that, and anybody who begs me, "How did you do what you did?" I say, "Well, you're in for it now, buddy." But the short version is Sporth, S-P-O-R-T-H. So S is the skill. You need the skill to get in the door. So whatever it is you're trying to do, not just voice acting, but you need a basic fundamental level of skill to accomplish it at a very basic level. Whatever it is. If you can't do that, why even bother? You can fake it till you make it, maybe, but you won't get but so far. The P is for persistence. Every time you fall down, every time there's a door slammed in your face, every time you hear a no, you get up, you keep going. So that's the important part, is to constantly repeat it through regular, repeated effort. Every defeat is a learning opportunity. And, every defeat is a learning opportunity. You hear that from all the self-help folks, but it's true if you can put it in perspective to learn, okay, why didn't that work and what can I try differently? O is for opportunity. So this is a big one that I tell people, is that opportunity is not going to find you. It may, lightning in a bottle may happen, right? But more importantly, you have to create your own opportunities. So you have to go out and do it and open the doors, fashion your own key, kick the door down if necessary to get to the places you want to be. You have to put yourself in as many situations and events as possible to maximize finding and creating opportunity. So that's a whole thing in and of itself. The R is resources, because you were just touching on this. So resources aren't just time and money, which are important, of course. If you have to fly somewhere to go train with someone or go to a workshop, can you do it? Can you take time off from work if you're working, and finding these things to do? But also, have you invested in improving your skill? Are you surrounded with support and encouragement? Because if you have anchors who are just telling you, no, you can't do that, nope, you never will, the psychological component as it relates to success for whatever you're trying to do is monumental. It's massive. So you have to basically surround yourself with cheerleaders, not sycophants, but people who can objectively say, you're doing a great thing, and they believe in you and know that there will be obstacles. Not that you're the greatest thing ever, but that they want you to succeed, whether or not you will. So that's important too. And have you done research? Are you flexible? Do you have a support structure? Have you found a mentor or mentors to help you navigate the path? I didn't have many mentors when I started, so I literally had to sit down and try to figure things out. And I would love for people who are trying to do it to not have to have that problem. Because a lot of wheels were spinning for a long time, going nowhere. And you have to try to find what works. So what's that? SPORT, time. So you need time, because that weaves into persistence. And that's also, when we talked about persistence of doing it again and again and again and again, but you need time to make that happen. Weeks, months, years. You can't expect immediate, instant results and instant gratification. It's nice. Oh, it's nice. Oh. But it's not necessarily a realistic expectation to think that I'm going to do this and tomorrow, success, baby. So you have to put some time in, and you have to be willing to allow it to take time to cultivate itself. And the H at the end of that, let's see, SPORTH, yes, okay, I got them all, is hunger. And hunger is sort of the overreaching principle of the whole thing. Do you really want it? And are you really hungry for it? If you're not hungry and you go to the best restaurant you could ever imagine, you're not going to eat much, and you're not really going to enjoy the meal as much as you could as if you haven't eaten in 2 days. So that would be a whole other host of problems. But you want to be able to really be hungry for it, because that's what's going to drive you to get up again and again when you meet failure, because inevitably you will. And that's what's also going to push you to go forward and get out of bed and try things that you haven't tried and stretch yourself beyond your level of comfort, because that's important too. So I rolled all that in, and I call it the Sporth method. The Sporth method. Yeah, it's a really great thing. So that people can think of that and apply it as a framework for trying to accomplish really anything. But that's how I put myself in this position with voice acting. So that's the best way I can. I mean, there might have been, a deal at the crossroads with the devil at midnight. There might have been. We don't need to get into that. And
I want you to know right now, if you tell me that you have not printed T-shirts that say Sporth on it, I'll be very disappointed. You're sitting on a motivational gold mine.
Well, and that's, I have not, and I'm going to tell you, and your disappointment can be as large as my own father's. But I haven't, because, and people say this all the time. They say, man, you should have written a book, and you need to be going.
You need to read that book also.
Exactly. It's in my skill set. But I'm not in it to market it in a sense that I need it to be financially viable and put food on the table. Mm-hmm. I tell people whenever I can, because I think it's something they should just know and think about, because it's valuable.
That's true. If your wife is annoyed at the idea that you've told that story again, if she went to the supermarket and saw someone wearing that shirt, there'd be no words for it. You would never hear the end of it.
Hey. Now I have a motivation to do that.
and on the back, it's just a very classy black and white, maybe sepia toned headshot taking up the entire back of the shirt as well, so everyone knows who made it.
I like Sean Crisden's Sporth. Yeah, I like this. I think this is exactly, see, now I have motivation, right? See, before, as long as you can prove somebody wrong and make them feel bad, that's real motivation, kids, right? That's why you should do things, to show people they're wrong. But that, I'm not in it to make money off of it. I just want to share that, hey, this helped me. Hopefully it helps someone else. And at least as a framework that you can think of how you're approaching something, not that it's this refined, rigid formula, but you think of, okay, well, do I have these elements in place to stack the deck in my favor in order to climb closer to whatever your perception of success would be? So that's really how I put that one together, so that because people ask you, how'd you do it? Well, I made funny voices. I occasionally put on pants, and I was really lucky. I don't know. There you go. So, give them a little more meat to chew on. So that was kind of what I put together to talk about just how to reach your goals, kids. That's right. Eat your vegetables.
So when I saw, by the way, and you mentioned earlier how much audiobooks you had done, I want you to know I was a huge audiobook fan back in the day. And what I mean back in the day, I would buy audiobooks in cassette form, and that would be how I would digest all books. And I still have a lot of my old audiobooks, whether it be from myself or my dad. I remember being such a stickler holding out because I thought audiobooks on cassette looked cooler because it was a bigger box as opposed to like 2 or 3 CDs. Like, I wasn't even thinking of convenience. I was like, no, it needs to be on cassette, otherwise it's not as cool of an experience. So I have to ask.
Excuse me, do you have books on tape? I only accept them on cassette tape.
Beta will be my only. That's the only way I'll bend for beta. That's about it.
Possibly on Laserdisc, bro. Maybe. I got a huge portable Laserdisc player. It's pretty cock.
So I have to ask, for you, since you've done almost 500, please tell me you have physical copies of any of your works you've done.
I have physical copies of maybe a quarter of them.
Because it's definitely way less prevalent. So, like, I know it's very much not the thing, but, like, that was a thing. Like, if you would go into, like, a bookstore, like a Barnes & Noble or whatever, in the CD section would be, there'd be your music, and then there would be books on tape / cassette. It was such a thing of, like, there was a time where I was like, no, that's just normal. All books have a guy speaking to you to tell you the book. Like, I thought that was just one of those things, like, you had to have for every book. It was, like, you're legally bound to have a man,
legally required.
It's
right.
Preferably deep-voiced or British, describing every character.
Simon Vance, yep. You get Simon Vance to do it. And the funny thing about audiobooks is that a lot of voice talent say, oh, no, you do audiobooks. Oh, man. And I say, look, now audiobooks are about half of what I do. And I'm slowly transitioning into a lot more animation and a lot more games because they're a lot more fun. But there's a certain, how shall we put it, ego stroking that happens with an audiobook. Because as an audiobook, especially if you're the only narrator of the book, because sometimes you do duet or ensemble work too, but the majority of the books I've done, I'm the only narrator. You get to don the hat of not just the narrator per se, but you're the director. You're every character in the book. You're the scenery. You're the cues. You're everything. And there's a certain reward to the creative component of me that comes from voicing an audiobook. And I think it also harkens back to a primitive time long ago when tales and histories were told by stories. And as people, and it taps into a base section of our humanity. We're sitting around the fire and we're regaling each other in our victories and our losses and the histories of our people. And there's something audiobook narration that taps into that for me. And that makes that pretty enjoyable. And apparently I do well because they keep hiring me to do more and more of them. Those fools. But it's something that satiates me in a way that other character work doesn't. It fulfills a different part of me. But I think I love character work for games and animation more overall, but there's something that is fulfilled from the audiobook narration that it can be missing from the other character work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I still do it and why I enjoy it so much. But it's becoming a smaller and smaller portion of my workload, especially now. I've once I made the decision to commit to more, especially more animation, it's been kind of nonstop. There's lots of cool stuff happening in the next couple of months that I can't talk about, unfortunately. But
he's the ring in Elden Ring. I'm sorry to break it to everybody.
Oh, you ruined it! Oh no! Now everyone will know.
But I do have some pretty smoking cool roles coming up that I know you'll say, I can't believe he was just on the show and he didn't even tell me that he is in, that kind of stuff. But so soon, some of it will be by the end of the year. Should be done production. But yeah, fun stuff. But it's a heck of a ride. It's a fun gig, and every day I have to remember to appreciate it. As this is my full-time job. I'm not hossing bananas down at the docks or, hustling cards in some dark, swarthy alley with a cool carved bone blade in my belt.
That does sound a lot better than voice acting. Now that you say it like that.
I may need to rethink my career options here. But it's overall when people say, well, how do you do what you do and do you enjoy it? I say, well, heck yeah, man, it's super easy. In the sense that once you establish the skill and you get into the routine, you're comfortable in doing what is required. Not to say that objectively it's easy, that someone just comes in and makes all the funny voices and sits around in their underwear like me. Don't think that's easy at all, guys. But it's something that it's a reward. I'm living the dream, man. This is like, really? I get to do this? I never would have imagined 15 years ago that I would be doing this. But here I am. And I'm talking to you. I get to talk to Spencer. Oh, did I fix my makeup correctly? Am I okay? So it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Sum it up in a word.
No, I really appreciate it. Even though this has been like almost an hour intro of like pre-ramble, I think it's given a lot of really good context and everything for it. So, of course, the real reason everyone's here is to learn about you and sport, but we do have a tiny subject of a tiny role you might be in, so I don't want to be very rude and completely catfish everyone into it. So, if you do not mind, and however much you're able to let us know about, what the heck was basically, whose wife did you have to blackmail? How did you become the prime minister in Koshimizu in Shin Megami Tensei 5? I guess actually easier question. I say easier, but every time I ask voice actors this, it's like they have instant dementia. Do you remember when this started?
Yes. I'm trying not to appear to have dementia. Yes, it was many years ago. I think that there was a total eclipse, and it was. I saw the audition come in from my agent.
The script said Dune 3, and you went, all right, let's see what this puppy's going to be.
Live!
I would love to play the Baron. Come on, Harkonnen. Come on.
You know what? We've got time. We could still make you the God Emperor. There's time.
Ooh, I like the way you think, guy. So, but I saw that I get a lot of auditions come in through my various agents, and I saw this one come in, and as is typical with many of the scripts you get, especially for up and coming or existing intellectual properties, there's code names. So I can't even remember what the code name for this was. It was like Purple Blueberry or, something they call it, or Project Trident. It's always something that sounds kind of weird. And sometimes you'll get something in like that, and you'll read for a part, and it's like, here's Project Lockbox. And you're like, okay. And you're reading for this character, and you're reading the lines, and one of the lines is something like, I can't believe these Decepticons are turning up this, and you're like, I wonder what this is for. But and I saw this, and there were a couple key terms that I remembered in some of the audition lines, and I'm like, I think I know what this is. And as a voice talent, see, here's something to all the voice talent that are listening or aspiring voice talent. When you get an audition and it's one of those super secret code word auditions and they don't tell you what it is, which I understand the need for secrecy for some products in the NDAs, excuse me, but also there's an element that's missing when the talent are auditioning for something and don't know what it is, especially if it's an intellectual property you're very familiar with. So you know what to bring to it to fit the lore and the world and the characterization. But a lot of times you just go into stuff blind. And I was starting to think, I think I know what this is. So I was able to pull in my very, very scant history and pull up some stuff and say, I think I can figure out how to approach it, something that would work. And the funny thing is my audition is exactly what I did for the character. Sometimes you'll do an audition and you tweak it once you get to the actual sessions. Because now that it's more robust and you get to see a bigger script and you have more ideas of intention and subtext and who the character is. But what I did for the audition, it was one of the cases where I happened to guess correctly. You know, you make a choice as a talent and you say, okay, I'm going to make this choice for this guy. And they really dug it. And it was spot on for Koshimizu and what he was. It actually matched really well. I didn't have to really change anything from the audition. So that was very fortunate. And the way it came in is I have a fabulous agent in LA that a lot of the bigger auditions come through. And that's which, for those of you who are also, well, how can I get this gig? How can I do this? I love Shin Megami Tensei. A lot of the bigger games and properties are only going to go through agencies. And at that, they're only going to go through bigger, more reputable agencies. So unless you know someone directly or you know the casting director and you're good pals with them and you say, hey, can I throw my hat in on this? And you know, some of the games actually are still union games, so you may need to be a member of SAG-AFTRA. So the way you're going to gain access to it is to work your way up and find good representation that has access to these things, mostly through the bigger markets like LA. And, you know, I get a lot of awesome stuff. And some stuff so awesome that comes in that I geek out over. And I'm, I really want this. And trying to nail stuff like that. So I still remember that at the end of the day, I'm still a fan too. And I love this stuff as much as everybody else. So a lot of people think that, oh, well, you're a voice talent and you sit on a golden toilet with a golden microphone, you know, and it's it's pewter. It's pewter. But it's we're just, the majority of us are just people. And a lot of us now, like you were saying earlier, we're really into the stuff we do. And that's one of the things that dug us into it and that keeps us going. And we are fans as well as the talent acting in the media. So that's how I came across it. And I just instantly read the character sides and I was like, I think I can nail this. And it's funny because I was about to give a major spoiler. Holy moly. Sorry guys.
So me and the Bethel boys are getting our blueberry milkshakes at the Denny's, and it is a rager. Let me tell you, the cooks drank. Oh, sorry guys. Spoiler. We'll cut that out. This isn't live. We'll cut it out.
A lot of people didn't realize that I am not just Japan's prime minister. I am also a very big fan of blueberry pancakes. That it was I was about to slip. Would have ruined everything for you guys.
I've got to say though, because of all the voices you've done, whether it be in joking or everything I've seen for it, I kind of got to like dig into your brain here for it, because what led you to go? Because you have such a I wouldn't even call it stoic. You have a very interesting tone to Koshimizu. It's like, it's very like, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, because it's very like, I've not heard anything kind of like it before. Like, what was your like kind of mental thought process going into it? Of like, what were you pulling from?
Well, after reading the sides of the character and understanding a little more about him, and again, I'm skirting the line. I don't want to give away too much for the game, but he definitely is a planner, well thought out, well composed, and comes from a position of significant power. And when you have individuals like that, and I kind of pull out of my own experiences and the media that I consume, and what I think, as he was described, how he would present himself. And it's funny because then when I listened to Kenjiro's interpretation of him as well, I was like, okay, I think we're kind of in the same ballpark, cultural differences aside. And a lot of the fans actually responded very favorably to Koshimizu's my voicing of him and my approach to how I shaped him as a character, which is the ultimate compliment, where they get it. They're like, okay, that works, because you can make a choice and it sucks, and that's just how it is. But a lot of the fans have actually spoken very positively of my interpretation of him, which is, that I can't ask for anything more than that. That they buy it, they love it, they're into it. So that approach to him came from really just, it's the actor's process. When you read the sides and the description of him and who he is and his role in the game, then in my brain that starts to take shape. And that's something that comes from not just the skill of being an actor, but also the familiarity of the genre and the style of gameplay and being a fan of that stuff and knowing what I would want to hear for that. So that gets put into it too. So that, when you have people who don't play games or don't watch anime, or they just approach it purely from a technical aspect of the craft, that's awesome. But I think approaching it also as a fan and knowing what some of the expectations are gives an additional layer to it, that I try to also apply to it. So that's kind of where he came from. He came out sort of like that.
It was a really nice breath of fresh air. I think that's like why it's resonated with so many people so much. And like one of the people listening live, a friend of mine named Kitty Misa, was already a big super fan of the character before we had known the English voicing and everything for it. And then what was so funny is when I heard your voice, I was like, I wonder how she'll resonate with this. Of like, she loved the character with the Japanese one. I'm like, so like, I wonder if it'll be a different thing. Right. I was almost ready for like, not quite my tempo. I wasn't sure how she was going to react to it or whatever. And then immediately then she fell for you even more, of it being funny. Of like, yeah, it was like, loved the character. Oh, okay, this is the interpretation we're getting in the West. Of like, oh, okay, I love you even more now.
All right, boys, pack it up. We're done here. See that, and that's just the ultimate reward for doing it. That you don't listen to it and think, oh, that just doesn't fit. That's just, this is terrible. And of course there will certainly be people that think that. Of course, we cannot please everyone. But to hear that, knowing that someone who enjoyed Koshimizu as in his original native incarnation, that just, my day is made. Thank you. Feeling good. Gotta just march around.
And also, I just want to kind of like say as well with it, I'm really glad, because I think you touched on this a little bit. It would have been so easy to typecast this character. I'm a stuffy, stuffy Prime Minister of Japan, and he's just doing all of the entire cast, and the entire script is just done in a cigar chamber.
Yeah, pretty much. My name is Koshimizu. I'm in charge here. Yeah, but we've heard all of that before, and it's boring. It's boring to the sense that it doesn't challenge our expectations. It's not interesting to listen to. It doesn't support the character and who the character is. So I typically, and I've done characters like that, especially when that's what is called for. Like I did the whole Shadowgun series. I was pretty much every male character in the series, and for those of you that have played the games, and the lead character is just this big buff. He kind of looks like Bruce Willis. They modeled him after a big buff Bruce Willis, and he's just this tough guy. He's just kind of a generic tough guy with quippy one-liners, and we've all heard that before. So when he gets on screen, he talks like this, because we know what this guy sounds like. Yeah, and I'm going to shoot you in your face. That kind of stuff. So we know what that is, and that played into exactly what was needed for that character. And that stuff's fun too. But sometimes you get a character like Koshimizu who you can bring a little something different to. And you can add, because there's some really fun stuff in the game with him. And without giving too much away, it's just fun, guys. And digging into who he is while maintaining his composure amongst all of the goings on is so much fun, and understanding how he would handle it. You know, there are a lot of times where you don't necessarily get to act as much within a character, because sometimes a lot of characters can be very cardboard, very black and white. They don't start to deal with nuance and the subtlety and color that enriches our whole human experience in general, and that makes these characters feel more than just, oh, it's a video game character. Oh, it's a video game, you know, and so that makes them feel alive, and that they're thinking and they're rationalizing, and they have emotions and desires and needs and wants. So when you get an opportunity to do something like that, it's an amazing reward, not just as a talent, but also for the fans and the folks who are experiencing it, because it makes it deeper, it makes it bigger. So while we can rely on just the old training wheels of, you know, what has come before and the concepts of, I can phone this in, I know what to do, and sure, I'm guilty of doing that in some cases when it's merited for the material. Because that's what's expected.
Random street thug number 13. All right, I've already got him in the bank. Here,
I'm gonna punch you in your face. See, get over here. You know, when you gotta do that kind of stuff. But it's, you know, but sometimes you get someone who is more complex and more layered, like an onion. Every time you peel back a layer, there's another layer, and your eyes, they run. You know, you get these things. So that stuff is always fun. You know, that's the cream of the crop when you get a role like that. So, and Koshimizu falls into that category. So it's, he was loads of fun, and it's, I was about to give another. I'm about to give it away, guys.
There's a lot. The funny thing is, it actually takes a while to actually get to his character. But let me tell you, there is a reason we have seen so little of him in trailers, because there is very little once you kind of get to meet this person before you're then like, oh, because then it adds up. Because for the longest time, all we knew about him was like, hey, he walks into a big bright room. He sure heck of a lot looks like that Aogami guy. I don't know what's going on with that. And then going on to other things of like, it was very nice to still have a lot of questions, even now as I'm playing through it, of like, because nothing is worse than when you're excited for something in a certain type of media, and you're like, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was in the trailer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love what they did with the trailer, because it does not, it provides enough to nibble on, but it doesn't give away anything. So, you know, I've seen a lot of the speculation that's going on online about various things and what could happen and yada yada, and I said that's good, because they threw out just enough meat for folks to nibble on without providing the full buffet and the full 7-course meal. And that's something, you know, trailers are notorious for ruining important things like that, you know, big reveals or scenes or confrontations. And I like what they did in this trailer, because it's enough to wet the old whistle, but not, not toot the horn.
So, I thought of another one, but I need to get an answer because I know I will definitely forget it, and I'm gonna be that guy. So, do you remember when you would have auditioned and actually recorded this for? Would this have been this year or last year for you?
We recorded. Actually, I'll tell you. I will tell you. I will give you a true answer. I won't even lie to you this time.
2016. This puppy's been.
We recorded this in 2011.
I will tell you. Let's see.
Miramax dusted it off. It was sitting in the back corner, like, "Hey, we shipped this thing yet? All right, get it out there, direct to DVD."
Let me see here. So we recorded this May of this year.
Okay, that was because what was one of the funny thing is when I was trying to kick as many hornet's nests as I could last year about projects that were happening and stuff, and what was so funny was like things had been done so long ago, and I hadn't really heard anything about this project at least as of like 2020 and stuff. So that's why I was like, okay, that's really interesting and stuff, because I'd known about like localization process and everything, because this one is such an interesting case of this is the first worldwide release. They everyone had to have their shit together, and what's funny is you saying that actually perfectly lines up with something I'd been saying since June of this year. So basically, June was this game's kind of big outing. After many years of kind of being teased and everything for it, and what I had kind of told people is, along with information I had kind of confirmed on my side from the development of things, when this game was revealed in June, that game was done. The Japanese version. The Japanese version was done, but to make it a worldwide release, that summer was basically the, okay, America, get your shit together. We gotta finish it. We gotta finish this. So that's really kind of funny. Of like, yeah, that would make sense about because their track record in Japan has been like, hey, we're not gonna give you a date until we're done, because like that's very much their whole thing with it. So for you, do you kind of remember how many sessions that might have been? Was it like multiple days? Was it just like a very long one day?
I think Koshimizu was 2 4-hour sessions, if I recall. I could be lying to you. I'm good for lying. But I remember we finished it faster than the sessions we had booked. And the team said, wow, you knocked that out of the park. I said, I dialed him in. I got this. You know, and just,
I'm a professional.
Got it. I didn't know if you knew it, but I'm a professional. And it was, we like blew through it. And he has a lot of dialogue in the game. And it was faster than I thought too, and I said, I guess I seemed like I knew what I was doing. Okay.
You guys got any like penis demons you need voiced? I got extra time. Like we're still on the clock. You want me to do a couple? You got the cat? You got that cat voiced yet?
I unfortunately I believe all have been cast and recorded, but yeah, you know, there's always a great thing when you go into a session as a voice talent, and I did. What was I doing? I think it was American Dad. We were doing American Dad, and I was there, and you know, we're going through the thing, and where you start cracking up, everybody starts cracking up because you're doing your thing, you know, and you're into the character, and you have a couple ad libs that kind of come up, play with the script, and you're a little bit of embellishment. But when you know that the people who are working on the show regularly are just laughing, and you're like, I'm doing my thing. I'm in the zone, baby. You know, you know you're hitting it right, and that's a reward too, where you say, man, the producers of this are digging it. They're laughing genuinely out loud, and that's when, for me, that's one of the biggest rewards outside of it then being seen by the fans, and they're hopefully enjoying it. You know, that's where you feel, because largely as a voice talent, especially now, you work largely in a vacuum, where you're just staring at the screen and everybody's on the screen. We're not doing these big ensemble group records where you're having that live energy. There's not a lot
of that like instant gratification you might get even with like a producer and stuff like that. It's like a delayed thing.
Yeah, or the best is, you know, as a voice talent, I do a ton of commercials and things too. So you'll even if you're in the booth, but you know, now at home it's the same thing. So they'll say, okay, we're rolling, we're ready on one, and you do your thing. You know, you buy the new Bigfoot Yeti, you know, now with 3 more teeth, this kind of thing, and you do it, and then they say, okay, hold on, and then there's silence. So if you're in the studio, there's silence. You know, you're in the live room, and they're all in the control room, and you look in, and you see them gesturing to each other, and someone's shaking their head furiously. No.
A lot of chin stroking. A lot of chin stroking going on.
And a lot of pointing. No, there's point. That's angry pointing. That is definitely angry gesticulation. Okay. Oh, he slammed the thing down. Oh no, he threw the script. Oh boy. And then the engineer will come on and, okay, let's go again. You know, and you're like, okay. So it can
Sean,
be very challenging.
can you hear us okay? Yeah, we just found out no one recorded any of that. We need you to do all that over again.
We'll have to do that again. And then you'll hear, hey, this is Produceman. Can you make the next take maybe a little more banana? Thanks. You know, and you get that, and you're, okay, I'm a professional. More banana, here it comes. I'll make it more appealing, you know, and you get all this crazy direction, and you're trying to hit the home run. And that's the thing where you feel like you're sort of on an island, where it's just you and it's all on you. Where sometimes the ensemble record stuff it's as if there's a veil of cover from the other talent. Especially, you get to go in and you're riffing off of each other, and you're getting to generally sticking to the script, but to play a little bit, and there's some camaraderie, so it's a little easier. But when it's just you, and you're just, I'm sitting in my studio, and I hope I'm doing okay. And they, okay, hold on. There's a long period of silence. We're playing back, and they're seeing if everything matches up, and that's when the crushing specter of self-doubt takes its toll. And you're just like, oh, I total imposter syndrome. They realize I'm terrible. I have no talent. I can't do this thing, and they're gonna tell me I'm fired, and I'm gonna have to tell my wife, and she'll say, "I told you so. You should have never talked about sports." And just the whole thing was, yeah.
I just realized a really interesting. You mentioning imposter syndrome. I don't even know if you guys have thought about this, because this is such a hilariously long game, as most RPGs tend to be. Are you gonna be like? Is there going to be a weird moment on Saturday when you guys are signing things at Game Realms where you're like, this guy hasn't even heard me yet, has he? I bet he hasn't even opened his game. Do you even know what I look like? Do you know what my character sounds like yet? They're like, how excited are you really?
Tell me if you like my performance.
It's one of those funny things because a lot of you guys are like so new and stuff with it. Of like, it's one of those things of like, you want to get that signing, you want to get your copy signed and everything for it, and then you almost want to have like a post-mortem 2 months later, like, and would you like my signature to stay there? I can remove it if you've reflected upon it differently. Okay, it's still good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm only writing it in pencil. Okay, so after you play the game, feel free to erase it. You have to purchase the eraser separately. But it's funny because for the signing, I said I commissioned an incredible artist to do an interpretation of Koshimizu, and
I hope it's a tasteful nude.
Tasteful.
It's completely nude, but there is just a singular copy of Shin Megami Tensei 5 for the Switch covering up his genitalia.
That's right. But well, it's hard to cover up the Prime Minister's
That's true.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And tasteful nude, I can only describe it with the term helicopter. That's all I can say. Yep.
I want you to know there is a large level of envy. If I could think of any excuse to drive halfway across the country to be around and be a complete knucklehead with all of you guys there, like what was so funny, and I felt so bad about this, I tweeted at Game Realms because I was like, anytime you guys want to invite me, just letting you know, I'm right here. Any excuse you want, and it was just so funny. Of like God bless them, they were so nice. They messaged me, they're like, "Hey, did you want to come to this thing?" I do. I can't, but I shouldn't, but I want to. But hey, we'll see. But it was just one of those funny things of like, especially because it's almost like every other week, like someone else is like, oh hey, you want to get a Doug? Doug and accountants can go to it. Like, all right, let's get Doug from accounting to go to this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a hoot. I think it's gonna be great, and I'm looking forward to interacting with everyone, especially since for those who have watched the trailer, and they're like, oh, I've seen a lot of feedback, but I really like the Prime Minister. Yeah, he's great. And then, they don't know who I am. Some of them, some do. Some are fans of my other game work or my animation stuff, or even the audiobook.
If someone, I want this to happen. Someone listening has to make this come true. I want specifically someone to bring you a gold copy of G.I. Joe, what was it, Blacklist or whatever. I want someone to bring you the new, because it just it re-released this year, Operation Blackout G.I. Joe had a complete edition. I want someone to get a copy of that signed by you at this event. The most no reason to bring it at all. The most out of left field signature.
Look, here you go. Yeah, I hate to break it to you guys. I'm not bringing any Storm Shadow, Tomatsu Zaymot prints to sign.
They're like, can you sign the cover 3 times for all of your characters? And you're like, you got it. I'll give you 3 different ones even.
Here you go. No problem, guy. Or like, you get like Kingdom Rush or Iron Marines fans where I voiced probably close to 50 characters in those series. I'm like, hey, can you? Or they'll say, hey, can you do the voice of this character? I say, wait, who? It's all a blur, guys. I'm sorry. You gotta refresh my memory. The stuff where you just go in and they're like, yeah, we want you to do everybody. Okay. Okay. I'm fortunate enough to have a pretty crazy range, but man, some of that stuff. And then people, hey, do you remember when you did? I don't. Somebody came up to me in a GameStop. This was a couple of years ago, before apes must hold diamond hands, and they they heard me talking to. I was talking to one of the clerks there, and they recognized me from Shadowgun, and they were like, "Wait, are you the guy in Shadowgun? Are you John Slade?" And
that was a deep cut. Even no matter what year that was, that's a deep cut to pull Shadowgun. Mm-hmm. That guy was doing his job that day.
It really is. Because there's so many games that I did too that aren't. Like I said, I'm terrible at marketing myself and the admin work that aren't on IMDb and aren't on. Because I don't think Shadowgun's even on.
It's
IMDb.
not. No, I had to look it up because I was like, why do I know Shadowgun? And I remember it very, very vividly of like, oh, that was the Game Loft Gears of War.
Yep. And it was awesome. I mean, the game engine was amazing for mobile, and it was a cool game and cool series. And they went and did all the other ones that I did for them.
Can you believe that was 10 years ago? By the way, that's a 2011 game.
Holy crap! Well, it's still fresh because we did Shadowgun, then we did some expansion stuff, then we did Shadowgun War Games, which was sort of the FPS MOBA version that was awesome, and I voiced. I don't know, 3 or 4 of those characters. And I was the voice director for the other ones. So I was still immersed in it relatively recently. But it's, somebody recognized me and it's like, wait, I became a voice actor for the relative safe anonymity. This is concerning because I am a hermit and I'm an introvert. And people don't believe me when I tell them.
No, I was going to say that's a big lie you just told everyone right there.
Yeah, they're like, you're lying. And I say it all the time. And here in the town I live in, I'm on the board of directors for a local creative arts and theater group.
I thought you were going to say I'm on the board of directors for the town. We direct the town. It's all production.
The town is called Bethel, and I often will do workshops, not just for VO, but I'll also do I work on some storytelling workshops and I host the events and stuff. And I get up there on stage and I tell some rambling story about my life, which, as you can see, I'm very good at. And I will tell people often, I'm an introvert. I'm very introverted, and I'm always met with the same look. And I said, well, I get it out by doing these characters and being able to put on these masks. But if you ask me what I would prefer to be doing, yeah, I'm gonna be home playing video games in my crypt. Preferably by myself.
So this actually kind of brings on to another one. I was talking to another voice actor. God, was it this year or last year? No, it would have been this year. I was talking to the voice of Hikawa in Nocturne, actually, Connor Fogarty. And what was really funny about it is I was telling him this. I was like, are you aware you're now, because this is like, there's a difference between I'm voicing something in anime and then I'm a titular character in a Japanese property that just for whatever reason sparks all the convention invites. I'm like, once conventions start happening regularly, you're gonna get those emails. And I wanted to ask, have you you gotten any feelers? How soon until we see all of this in the flesh at convention settings?
Well, all of this, I am gesturing broadly to my body. It'll actually be happening. That's right. Everyone calm down. It'll actually be happening pretty soon. I've done some cons, but most of them were for audiobook stuff because I'm against my better judgment. And
we could do a whole podcast on just that sentence you just said. Let me tell you about my audiobook conventions. If you've ever wanted to see the world's largest gathering of introverts, it's a bunch of audiobook listeners.
Boy. And when I tell you that I've done cons and that one of the things that I'm known most for in audiobook narration is erotica and romance. So when I tell you that...
We're going to need some links after this. Everyone check the show notes. We're going to have a lot of sourced links.
Yeah, don't tell your parents.
We'll give you some timestamps. Here's where the moans are deepest and the grunts are girdliest.
Right. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah. So... one of my first experiences was in, I think it was 2012 or 2013, and I was invited to my first con, and I didn't know what to expect. Like, who wants to hear or see me or care or anything? And I left that experience with not only a brand new appreciation for the fans, but for what I do as a career. Because again, you work largely in a bubble, and you're kind of in a vacuum. There were people crying to meet me. And I was so humbled and flattered that I didn't know what to do. I had one fan who made a collage that she made two, and one for me to sign and one for me to keep of stuff I had done. And it was so amazing that I had a complete just revival and just this amazing epiphany about what it is that I do. Because you think, oh, well, I just make funny voices. It's not like I'm a doctor or, a fireman or an ice cream scooper. I'm not doing important work for the world.
I'm a thespian.
Damn it, I'm a thespian. and it totally. And then I would get fan mail from a lot of visually impaired fans, in particular, who talk about audiobooks and say,
how was their handwriting? Was it pretty good handwriting?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was in Braille. I
had to learn Braille for fan mail would be the most. That would be the most like. I don't even know whose ego you're boosting at that point. I'm like, I learned Braille to read your letter, and they were like, I liked you, could have been better. You're like, wow, this was 6 years worth of.
Yeah. Wish you would have brought more to the table. And
I also want you to know, I'm assuming the envelope also in Braille. So the mailman, also blind, is using the Braille to know where you're at. There's like 6 Braille they're Braillemen. They're Braillemen around the country.
Braillemen, and that's just Brailleception, basically, is what's going on there. Because it's just all happening in and of itself, unfolding on itself. But yeah, it was electronic. It was email. It was, we were at a time when that was a thing. And it blew my mind. Because I was being thanked for bringing the world of literature to people who were visually impaired. And I said, wow, I feel like I do something other than just make funny voices and, match the mouth flaps. I'm doing something that's helping people. And that changed my perspective on what I do. But in terms of cons, yeah, there will be some cons coming up because...
Are we allowed to advocate? Can we beg cons to pay you money to make your appearance?
Pay me money, let me show up. I'm a good time. Yes, I will not deny that. And I do like apple pie and barbecue, so I demand nothing but apple pie and barbecue in payment. But it's especially with some of the stuff that's coming. There will definitely be con appearances because there's some pretty meaty stuff happening in the coming. In the next 2 months, there'll probably be some announcements of some cool things where, I am totally typecast, apparently. So,
you're the prime minister of the new Halo. You're the prime minister of Elden Ring. You're the prime minister of the new Witcher everything, all of it.
That's right. The prime minister. He's the primiest prime minister of all of these things. And yeah. So it was funny because when I was cast in these things, it was just sort of this casting cascade of characters that were sort of similar in several ways. So I had to laugh. I said, wow. And a lot of them were in pretty big properties. And I said, are they telling me something? Is there something I don't know about myself that I have to dig deep down inside and understand about my true nature?
I've been trying to not be too distracted with the chat, but Yoso had such a great pun, I had to include it. Yoso says, are you cast as Optimus Prime Minister? Which would be fantastic.
Holy moly. I have not been, but I would gladly accept Optimus Prime. That's amazing. See, let me say something. I have a son who's almost 3. I love a good dad joke now. So, yeah, hit me with your puns. I love it.
Delegates roll out. So,
delegates roll out.
Assuming I have not stolen too much of your time, do we have time for any questions?
Of course, let's do it. And
awesome.
See, I'm the idiot who I love questions and I love interacting with the fans because without the fans, I wouldn't really have a job. And being a fan of a lot of stuff myself, I love interacting with the talent that way. To say, okay, well, let's talk about this thing. That's So yeah, questions galore. Hit me.
All right, so I do have them pulled up, but I did have one that I was kind of curious about for you in terms of like the process with it. Well, we were kind of talked about how the dub really got announced. What was it? Not even a month ago at this point. It was very, very soon. But it was one of those things that when you were recording it or kind of leading up to the process of it coming out, because what's funny is people don't even know that you're not only NDA'd from saying, oh, I'm doing this thing, like you're sometimes NDA'd even after your voice has been publicly heard, which is the most hilarious thing ever when everyone with ears are like, yeah, that's that guy. And he's like, can't say anything.
Yep. Did you do this thing? I can neither confirm nor deny that.
That'd be like, imagine with the Uncharted movie trailer, and they did not announce that the villain was Antonio Banderas. And they're like, wow, Antonio Banderas, you look great in that movie. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I did not know that I was in that movie. I was in oh man, that
Is there like a voice actor press release, by the way, that like goes out the day before? They're like, at 9 a.m. you are allowed to publicly reveal that you play this character.
Believe it or not, typically no. Sometimes I don't even know that the game is out. Yeah, or sometimes sometimes they'll send me a release, or the director or whoever I was working with would say,
you're gonna get a sweet merch box coming next month. You're getting a sweet merch box. Let me tell you,
I love it.
You're gonna have to make an unboxing video, and it'll be very, very good.
Oh man, I would be all about it. Like I was in the Outer Worlds for the expansion for it, which was oh man, was it Murder on something? I was
only way to find out. Everyone's got to buy all of them. Just buy all of them, and then you'll find.
There you go. Buy all of them, and you'll see who I was. Administrator Ludovenko, who, if actually talking about how, I think it was Murder on Eridanos. I think that was it.
I love, by the way, you remembered that character's name as opposed. the made up name instantly because it was you, but there was like the title. No idea. I don't even know.
Yeah, I was in this game that had it was like an Italian plumber and a bunch of turtles. I don't know, and it was and it's funny because he was sort of my archetype for Prime Minister Koshimizu.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember, and they were I think I went from not quite one session to the other, but I think they were within like a day of each other or something when I did the sessions for them. They were really back to back, and I could be lying, but I remember thinking like, oh yeah, like I had just done that character in the game, and I thought, yeah, he was kind of similar, and he felt kind of similar. So I pulled some elements of him out. So I wasn't exactly truthful when I said that I didn't pull quite from any existing elements for Koshimizu. So yeah,
it was like the proto minister. Now everyone's gonna go buy that DLC and then find the origin story. They're all connected.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, it's not exactly a helicopter. It's more like a biplane. See, that's yeah.
So our first fan question comes from Demi Crow. As you did say, I'm not a fan of this word because I'm a jaded 28-year-old, but you did call yourself a gamer. So Sean, he was wondering, what SMT games have you played? So you mentioned Persona, you mentioned Nocturne, but like now, which ones have you played? And a question I always like to ask all of our guests whenever they come on: what is one game now you cannot wait to play in the series of SMT?
Truth be told, okay. Well, to answer Demi Crow's question, Demi Crow, I have played Persona on I think it was the PS1 because I remember staying home from work to play it, and I have played Nocturne, which was Shin Megami Tensei 3, and those are the two that I've played. However, in a keen version of tooting my own horn, yeah, I can't wait to play Shin Megami Tensei 5. So, and unlike some people, I didn't get a promotional copy.
Not yet. Oh, you know what, Sean?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. I'll fly on down. Give you my Switch. Let me just knock this puppy out. I got maybe 78 more hours left on it. I'll lend you my copy. We'll see what'll happen.
Aww. You are a true pal. Look at that. Look at that, guys. See? That's what makes the world go round. Lies.
Now I have to ask out of curiosity for it, just because the space between them has kind of like been so much for it. Are you kind of excited, not knowing what to expect in terms of the gameplay? Because like it's a very large departure.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of everything from combat mechanics to the characters, like there are some recurring themes that we found in earlier games, but largely, I've missed a lot. So I still have to go back and I want to play through the rest of the series. I doubt I'll do it before I play Shin Megami Tensei 5, but I want to do it. I'm one of those people who likes to play all of the games in the series, even if they're terrible, just so I can get a sense of where things came from. And it's only recently that I allowed myself the grace and kindness to stop playing a game I wasn't enjoying. because I have to finish it. I must finish this game. I must complete this to play the next game in the series. So I was the kind of person who had to play all of it, so that I felt like I was getting the full experience and the full evolution of a game if I didn't play it originally. I've been playing video games for a long time. My first game system was an Atari 2600 and a ColecoVision. So that'll date me a little bit. I have a laughably respectable collection of video games that's probably museum quality at this point. I was a huge console gamer for a long time. I'm also a big PC gamer now. But I stopped buying consoles. Probably, what was the last consoles I bought? I have a PS3 and an Xbox 360. Those were the last quote unquote next gen consoles I bought, which now are far from next gen.
Do we need to go out to the Kmart and buy you a Switch? Do you not have a Switch then ready for you?
I admit I don't have a Switch. I'm gonna have to buy a Switch and buy the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, so I'll make a note. I'll tell Mr. Atlas in Japan. He's got no codes. That's why they haven't given you a code. They're making tailor made. With your art print, you're getting commissioned on the entire back of your Switch. They'll give you a one of a kind SMT5 Nintendo Switch just for you. Because I mean, really, what are you gonna do? Play it on a computer in 5 years? You gotta play it now. You're a man of the people.
That's right. That's right. Here I am. I must experience what you experience, feel what you feel. I'm definitely there in solidarity and camaraderie. I gotta go that one.
So our next question is by Dez on Twitter. It says, if you had the opportunity, would you want to continue playing more roles in the Shin Megami Tensei franchise?
Heck yeah, Dez! Heck yeah! Yeah, absolutely. Because I had such a thorough series of lessons of the lore. The writers were amazing, setting the scenes and pulling you into what was going on in the game, where they, and it's funny because one of them, she would just say, I'm sorry, I have to tell you this, just so you know. And I'm just like, yeah, go on. I can sit here and listen for hours. Tell me everything. Because it's just so awesome that I get to hear it and to see how it was crafted and understand the place in the world and the game world itself. It's just, I am in it to win it. So I'm definitely going to be knee deep in this very shortly. So yeah, I would love to. Yes.
So let's see what else we have for another question. This one's from Zeron on the Discord. It says, how was your feeling of actually voicing the Prime Minister stuff? Like, once you were done with the role, like, how did you feel you had executed on it upon completing those sessions?
That's a question that touches on some overarching elements of being a voice talent. And fortunately, in this case, as I do with actually a lot of my roles, my goal is to come away feeling that I did the best that I could with the character and my interpretation of it, and I was faithful to my own choices, as well as satisfying whoever the client is or whoever the developers are. So if the director listens and said, yeah, that's half the battle. The other half of the battle for me is making sure that I feel satisfied, that I brought what I could to the table through the choices I made as an actor for it. And I was faithful to those, and I didn't sell myself out or let myself down where I thought I could have done a little better. But so with Koshimizu, I hit it. I hit what I wanted to do for him, and everybody was super happy. And really, as a talent, I can't ask for more than that, other than for the fans to like it too. Please like it. Please like Koshimizu. So that was Zeron. That was my goal, and I did it. So I came away feeling really good about it.
That's
so
like
hopefully you do too.
That's like one of my favorite things is actually, I remember I was talking, I can't remember who was the first one to finally get back to me. I think it was Ryan. I was able to get back to Ryan in terms of once the voice actors got revealed, my first question was the question no one else besides a big nerd like me is going to ask. Who was the voice directors? Because I always try and get the voice directors on as much, because like talking to a voice actor is very much like that singular experience, whereas that person's with that project from beginning to end, and it is always so interesting kind of detailing and like almost kind of like overviewing that experience, because like you don't really have a lot of time to reflect on it in the moment, because like we were talking about, like your session really only took like a couple of days. This is not like a movie where you're like in the deeps of it for 9 months and you've got all this thing. So
right.
kind of looking at it a little bit more of like a introspective way is like always so fun, but you so rarely ever get to see it happen because there's not a lot of people in the like rooms being like, oh yeah, let's put these people on the media tour.
It's true, yeah, and that's what that's where you can get your broadest sense of a production as a whole, because they obviously in most cases sat through every session with every talent and saw it become this coherent thing. And so that's where you can definitely get, because, it is. I have a very unique, singular perspective on my experience and the individuals I interacted with. But the production as a whole, I was but a mere fragment of it. So seeing, getting the actual voice directors in, that's where, oh, yeah, Sean Crisden, he was terrible. Huh. We couldn't wait to get that guy out of the booth. So you get the real deal of what was going on. So absolutely, man, absolutely.
So another question by Kelsey on the Facebook group, and this one really struck home for me. She says, how does it feel voicing a DILF?
Well, I have one word for you. Helicopter.
Well, and hey, as you said, you have real DILF experience. You are an actual dad, so you could bring that to the role.
That's true. That's true. And, and that's the funny thing, that I knew it was the problem when I did the other cons for the romance audiobook stuff, because I'm not what people expect. And for people that haven't seen me, especially as Koshimizu, when they meet me, I love to see what their reactions are, because I'm not the typical guy you would hear voicing him, or even a lot of the other characters I voice. Because let me break it down to you guys. I'm a black guy. I'm black. I'm kind of mixed, but I look black. And
can you give me a little bit more of an urban Koshimizu? Can we urban it up a little, please?
let me think. What did he say in the trailer? Because I don't want to give any of the lines. He's here. So, especially coming from Philly, My name is Koshimizu. I'm in charge here in addition to being Japan's prime minister. My apologies for dragging y'all into this. Thank you. I admire your courage. So you
you're now going to have a request for paid DLC where it's just you redo the voice with that role now.
I admire your courage. But it's so people see that, and I'm a martial artist, and I tore my Achilles tendon in May, as it turns out. In fact, I was talking about it in these sessions for this, because I was talking with them about how I just tore my Achilles tendon. And that's right. That's funny, because I just had surgery on the 7th of May. And I just learned how to walk like 2 months ago. I basically had this cool pimp slide thing going on. And I always tell people, like, that's what I'm going for. If I had like maybe a cool velvet cloak and maybe like a staff or a scepter. Not so much a staff, because I guess that reads more as wizard than cool 70s pimp. But
there's a fine line. Cool, there's a fine, usually racial line that districts a pimp and a wizard.
Wait, what do you mean? You never heard of black magic, man? So it's, I guess the wizard would be casting spells and the pimp would have like some sort of magical backhand. I don't know. But it's this kind of thing where people meet me and then they see I'm generally physically fit, so I'm not I don't believe I'm a hideous looking character.
You're cut. You're just like, you've got a 19-pack rocking down there.
Dude, yeah, bro. It's the kind of thing where I'm at odds with myself, because I said I should be 500 pounds. If I wasn't physically active, I put on a lot of weight over the pandemic and when I ripped my leg off. So I was very inactive. So I'm just now getting back to being active and being some sort of bipedal creature. That it's funny when people meet me because they don't expect that. And then they say, wait, huh? And then I'm the guy, like, I have on cowboy boots, usually a cowboy hat. Who is this guy? What is he? Okay, I don't know anything. My sensibilities are rocked. They don't know what to make of me. So it's always fun to meet people in person, especially for any voice actor when you're voicing these characters that they come to know and spend 70 plus hours with, like in a game, or an anime series, and then they meet the voice talent and they're like, wow, you are not what I expected. So that's always fun. So I ruined the mystery. I lifted the veil for you folks that'll meet me at any of the cons or at the signing at Game Realms in a couple weeks. So yeah, sorry, ruined it. Sorry.
You see, but then watch the few people will be like, I'm more interested now. I'm more sold. I wasn't before. Like Dark Lord Liam in the comments who just said Japan's first black prime minister. Long overdue, everybody. The racial we've got. Right. I mean, no pressure. You are Japan's Obama now. I can't undo this. You've done it to yourself.
Well, I was hoping to attempt to bring universal healthcare to but it's the whole, and that's also part of my journey though, and the fact that, especially in this current woke culture, like where everybody's so, I'm so woke, man, that we begin to sort of fall back in on ourselves. There's been this implosion of identity, and people like to think of it as post-racism that happens and post-racialization. And I'm the kind of person, like, when I say I don't see color, people say, oh, that's BS. I really don't. I see people as people, and generally I dislike most of them. Which is why
I hate you all equally.
Equally, that's right. It's just that a person is great. People are the problem. Their stupidity tends to increase exponentially when they people versus being a person. But I'm an altruist. I believe in trying to help everybody, and that I see a person as a person for who they present themselves as. And that's been my journey and what I see, and especially being a voice actor and being a person of color in the voice acting realm, and especially one who has the ability to have such range. So I've played everything: monsters, urban black gangsters, prime ministers of Japan and leaders of Bethel, all this kind of stuff. And there are times when I question my validity and ability to do it because of the woke world we're in. So part of me exists as an actor who the actor should be a chameleon, and the actor should be able to portray various identities, whatever they may be, as a skilled actor. And then there's the other part of me that believes in solid representation, because that's something that historically has been lacking, where a person wants to see or hear, in this case, someone who sounds or looks like them, so that they feel heard and they feel represented. And I'm a strong proponent of that as well. So mixing the two in my particular case is always a challenge, to make sure that there is representation and that it's respectful and mindful of various cultures and various people, and that I don't necessarily want to take a job from someone of, they say, oh, we have this Inuit warrior and you can play this, and you say, okay, but do we know any Inuit warriors? They're kind of rare here, but can we hire someone of that history or ancestry, ethnicity, to help give additional representation to that and authenticity outside of me digging into the actor toolbox to do it, which I don't mind doing, of course. And I can say that as a person of color who were historically underrepresented in many acting venues. Not that I'm trying to get political. I mean, that's just what it is.
No, yeah, it's true. Because, I mean, honestly, what I actually found more surprising is, I don't think this has been public yet, and I definitely can't say who the character is. I have been gratefully pleased to find out that you are not the only one. It's not like you're the token person of color on this game. Like, there are other people besides a whole bunch of white people came together and voiced a bunch of Japanese people. Like, it's nice that I think, especially this game, I've not really reflected on it as much in the past with other ones of, like, this really fits and this makes a lot of things. Because, like, you were talking about, of, like, worrying about getting too political, of, like, hey, that guy shouldn't do this, like, this girl shouldn't do that. I remember leading up into the announcement of, like, whoever is going to voice the Nahabino is just immediately going to be set up for such failure unless they're a perfect cast, because ever since the reveal of this character, it is an extremely effeminate man And it is one of those
right.
things of like,
That's right.
I don't, because think about it, it's like, okay, do we give this to a guy and just tell them to do a high pitch? Do we give this to a teenager? Do we give this to a woman in her 40s sounding like she's a teenager boy in her 13s? And what was so funny is then as soon as it was revealed that it was Casey, everyone was like, oh, that's perfect. Like, everyone was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
like, it was just one of those, like, kind of like come to Jesus moments of like, okay,
Right.
this fits. Like, of
Nailed
just
it.
being like, yeah, nailed
But
it, don't need it, perfect job.
Right, representation matters, and I feel very confident saying I don't know. I wasn't on that side of the glass, so to speak, when they were doing the casting, but they cast people based on their ability to embody the characters. And as simple as that sounds, it's something that doesn't always happen for whatever reason, for good or for ill. So that's also one of the reasons why you got such a diverse cast, not only in their ethnic diversity, but in the fact that you haven't heard them a million times, most of the cast members, because they came in and they did something. They said, "That's it. I like that." Not because of how many, how many series they've been in, how many games they've sold, or it came down to elements of, yeah, that sounds like what we want for this character. And in the voice realm, while it sounds deceptively simple, that's not necessarily how things always work. Back to the sports method, it's on your shirt that I'm sending you, that when you talk about resources includes building your network, because you'll find that in the voice world, it's very small. It's very incestuous, like you said. And the people and it really in anything you do out in the world, but as we're applying it specifically to voice acting, the people make a huge difference, because they'll call you again. And then, oh, we worked with so-and-so. They were super easy to work with. We had a lot of fun. Let's get them back. We know they'll show up. That's half the battle. You'd be surprised how many talent have these sort of prima donna complexes and just make everything difficult and are just I'm so elite, and they turn their nose up at everything, which is why this is fun and we should have fun, and it's a job. There's a certain expectation of responsibility and professionalism.
Like this podcast, I hope, does not come off as a inside the actor's studio. Not every project should be like, now let me get deep into the core and the foundation of this character, but what it really meant to you, not only spiritually but physically as well.
Yeah, but like I said, you need to stop me. I was talking to Spencer before this, and I said, look, I get paid to talk for a living. There are times you just need to stop me. Say, guy, stop. Because we're doing it. Are we doing it live? We're doing it live. So yeah, you can't edit out any of this crap. See, I just put my foot in my mouth. Oh man, but it's just the reality of the industry. So and surprisingly, compared to on camera, what I've found is that voice talent are much more down to earth. We're much more accessible, generally, in my experience, anecdotally. But on camera, I found a lot more ego, driving and riding people to what their goals were. And hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But you choose who you want to interact and work with. Based on what you value and how you choose to spend your time. So, yeah, that. Thanks, Kelsey. Was it Kelsey that had the last question?
Oh my gosh, I think I already forgot it. But they know who they are. They're shaking their head. They're shaking their head. They're like, yes. that was a winner. So I don't want to stay you too long. I've got a couple more, but if you want, we can cut this up.
Let's do it.
All right, awesome.
No, let's do it. Let's do it.
So I have another one here from Mirthmouser. Mirthmouser says, "Is it surreal to find yourself?" Because I don't think people are aware of this, and I know this is like comic book guy saying Star Wars is next big thing, but I don't think a lot of people are aware that, like, hey, this is a really big game. Because, like, this is a really big Nintendo Switch exclusive. I think it is coming out at a perfect time. I think it's going to have a wave of positivity once I can actually talk about it. Once people can actually get out there, word of mouth spreading, like, I'm so ready for this just to become that thing of, like, oh, man, are you playing this? It to just be, like, such a big deal. Like, is it kind of hit you yet? Is it going to be one of those things that, like, you can't really judge until it's in the moment, or are you like, oh, this is gonna be huge?
That's an awesome question, actually, because I in some of the things I get that are big deals, you think, wow, that's a big deal. I tend to be, I wouldn't exactly call myself stoic in most cases, but I'm sort of an objective realist. So I understand the place that this game will eventually have, because it's not only because of its predecessors, but because it's a cool freaking game. So even people that haven't played other games in the series will likely get into it. And I think it will be one that is talked about for releases this year, quite frequently, in fact, because it's pretty good. So I guess I could say it hasn't hit me yet, because the game itself hasn't realized its potential yet in the public sphere. So once that happens, then I can ride that wave a little more realistically, I guess. Because right now it's trapped in sort of the ether of my head, where I just, I know what happens in the game. I may have seen the script once or twice, and have an idea of, wow, that this is really cool. But once it's materialized and other people have latched onto the tangible event of it, then I think it'll really become a real thing for me. So does that? Nah, I guess that kind of answers it. Or did I also give some ethereal answer of, oh, well, what the crystal says, the magic 8-ball says, uncertain?
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, hey, until they experience the 3-hour uncut Bollywood ending that is this game's finale, they're just not ready for it. No, I'm sorry.
It was really hard to get all the sounds matching with the oomph and umphs of the gyrations.
You think ADR is hard? Imagine Bollywood ADR. That's a whole new
Holy
ball field.
Yeah, for sure.
Very out of left field question, much like the last 2 hours of everyone listening to this. Ben 2 says, and I appreciated this, have you played the Yakuza series?
Believe it or not, they are in my Steam library. And
they're taunting you. They're just waiting.
So many games that just look and laugh at me. I have not, but I'm waiting to play them, including Yakuza 0. And they're in the library. They're waiting for me. And that's the thing that sucks. Real talk, kids. Real talk. I work a lot, largely because I do audiobooks plus commercials, games, and animation. If I really need to pick one, guys. But I work a lot, so I don't have nearly as much game time as I used to. In fact, and now that I'm a father and I have spawned, and there is a small human who demands I protect him and provide for him, game time has diminished significantly.
You're just like, hey, buddy, can you start playing these faster? If you can play them, then I can enjoy them through you. But until then,
let me tell you, when he can start playing games that I would also like to play with him, rather, he plays some really, really simple stuff on the tablet, but that is like the dream. And then introducing him to all the media and stuff that I like, the cartoons I like to watch. And
son, I'm gonna sit you down, and for the next 6 hours, you're gonna learn about the world of King's Quest.
That's right. And I know you're only 6, but we are watching all of Attack on Titan, and we're going to read the manga. So
uncensored. Mom does not have any say
right.
in this. All uncensored.
and just hoping that he's into it so that we can watch it and enjoy it. And it's like, for me, the ultimate thing will be showing him the original Star Wars trilogy, and hoping he's into it, and seeing the reveal of, yes, he is his father. I can dream. But yeah, so you don't get enough time to play games like I used to. I mean, I like I said before, I would take off work, taking a vacation to play the first EverQuest. And I took a vacation to play Final Fantasy VII. I did, and I woefully admit that I played that game the first time for 36 hours straight. So I had a problem. So it's
those are fun problems in retrospect. Like in the moment, yes, that's unhealthy and that's a problem. But I have also done that multiple times, ranging from child to quote unquote adult. That it's just like those special moments. Like for me, it's like almost like a rite of passage of any Hideo Kojima game that comes out. I take off work and I do not do anything until I beat it. Like Fair enough. Shut up, do
I support this.
That's my life.
If we needed to organize a political party, and that's our platform, I'm in full support of this. But yeah, so I don't get to play as much. I mean, sometimes I'll play like maybe an hour a night, and usually I end up playing something co-op with my wife. And our latest guilty pleasure has been 7 Days to Die. We've been playing that game for like 7 years.
Nice.
I probably have like 2,000 hours or something in that, and it's. It hits all the right buttons. Not as much in the latest iterations of it, but I mod the crap out of it and
Are
just
you
have a good old
guys
time.
are you guys ready to test your marriage and play It Takes Two?
No, we briefly flirted with it with oh, what's the cooking game?
Oh,
Uh,
Overcooked.
Overcooked. We briefly flirted with it with Overcooked 2, and there were moments that
Sparks.
that tested the very fidelity of the bonds in which we are wed. So yeah, but she's used to playing with me. I can be demanding, and but so she's used to playing games with me like that, where we're working for a similar goal, where we're cooperative. But yeah, it's yeah. I don't guess I want more time to play more games. Put it that way. Was it Ben 2? Ben 2.
Ben one, we're skipping your question. Ben two's getting
Ben
the
2,
limelight
you
today.
got it. Because 2 is greater than 1. Basic arithmetic. So, yeah. I just want more time to play games.
So next one by DHI Hollow. DHI Hollow says, "Did you ever get to talk with any of the voice actors during or after your recording period?"
That's an easy one. No.
Who
No,
do you
surprising-
want to talk to first? You're gonna be
Everybody.
stuck with everybody very soon.
I know. Well, I'm just going to go down the line and hit everybody up, because everybody contributed to this in some way, shape, or form, no matter how big or small their role. So I want to get a sense of also everyone's experience, because, again, for the most part, we all worked separately, and so we don't really know. We weren't in the other sessions. There might have been some that were ensemble sessions. I'm not entirely sure. But we were mostly recorded separately. So we'd get the line reads, and you'd hear what was happening in the scene. So hearing what other people's experiences were working on the game will be fantastic, because it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together for my brain so that I can have a more fully realized experience around it. So yeah, DHI Hollow, I ain't talked to nobody.
In my headcanon, I won't even hear otherwise if it's not true. I'm going to have to believe with all my might that Damon and Casey recorded all of their lines holding hands. Awkwardly, it was very sweaty by the end of it. Like, it was like clammy. Like, you know when like a hot day you've been in the recording booth for too long, but you're touching someone else? It was uncomfortable, but you felt it in the role. It was a seminal performance.
Yes. I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to keep that. Yeah, we're going to make that a real thing. I'm going to tell them that.
Be like, you get, because if you get to the game realm table and they're not next to each other, then someone's failed their job. Like, someone's getting fired for that.
That's right.
That table prep job.
Or maybe there was drama in the booth.
Oh, there's a breakup. The post-recording breakup. I imagine their couple name would be Daisy. Daisy had a rough summer. After that recording in May, Daisy just did not. Yeah, there's been rumors of J-Lo in and out of the picture. Maybe for both. We don't know.
That's right. They were filmed on the beach, not holding hands. Rumors are flying. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, man, thank you so much for letting me just absolutely kidnap you for way, way, way too long. But it was such a blast.
Absolutely.
Not only getting to learn more about you, but with everyone also enjoing live. Let me tell you, because I'm not sure if you hear this very much, but I mean, hey, you've been to the eroticons. As soon as the live listeners heard that, they were like, we need your bibliography. We need the Sean compilation. Here's everything and everything and anything that's come out in or out of this mouth.
Well, the easiest way for audiobook stuff, the easiest way is just to go to Audible and just search my name. I think they have probably 2/3 of the books I've done, because I'm about to hit 500 in December. I think they have, I don't know, 350, 400 or something on there. So that's an easy way to go through and find stuff that I've done audiobook wise. For games, I mean, IMDb is fairly complete. I should probably update it, because there's a lot of stuff that's missing there for games and animation. There's some new stuff that's coming out that if you Yeah, I have mentioned I'm social media averse, but I'm trying. I'm trying to post stuff so people know what to find. I have an Instagram. I have one of them near Twitters.
You were
And
social enough for not only to reply to me, but to then also come on the show. So you're not that much of a Arizona hermit.
well, I complain the whole way, and when I get off, I'm going to complain. So, just so you know, I mean, but yeah, and
Honey,
Facebook,
kept me
people
for
can hit
2
me on
hours
Facebook.
and 15 minutes.
I couldn't eat. I just wanted to eat. I should be 500 pounds. Yeah, it's
He
just,
only let me talk
yeah.
about carbs 3 times. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I'm failing to deliver. See, the veil has been lifted. Now you've seen behind the curtain, right? We talked about it. Yep, that's all it is. It's just sweat and helicopters. That's all.
Oh yeah, from helicopters to biplanes, we've really hit it all. I mean,
That's right. Your aviation needs right here. For those of you who are under the age of 18.
I think what the worst part about this, honestly, is I think legitimately when people then get to the point in the game where they then get to learn more about your character, they're like, wow, that was a great episode. Now that I finally have any level of context, and we now need to bring you back so we can actually talk about it. Because what's funny is I've reached out to a couple of the cast and they've been so excited to come on, but a lot of them are either busy with prepping other things, or a lot of them are like, I'm gonna wait till the game's out so we can talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to talk about other things, and I so get it, because it is one of those things of like wanting. Looks like once you've like done a character, unless it was kind of like more of a filler or a throwaway thing, it's like it's kind of fun to like dive in and like geek out with a character like when they are a little more nuanced and stuff like that.
And people know, because there's plenty of spoilers we could throw out and stuff that happens that I'm dying to talk about. But since it's so new, like I can't. So we have to keep it pretty clean, pretty above board here. So, but yeah, for sure. Like it would be pretty interesting actually to dive into some of the things that happen in the game with the characters in the game.
So I have one last. Normally we would say goodbyes and all the other normal stuff like that, but I have a weird last request, which you are more than welcome to say. Please leave and never contact me again. We have a very special Koshimizu request by Misa, super fan, #1 super, and now I think #1 Sean fan as well. Instead of saying goodbye, could you finish out this episode by, in his voice, saying, "You did a great job, rest well"?
I think I can probably handle that. I thought, well, let me preface it with, I thought you were going to say and bring up our PlayStation Home.
Allegiance. As soon as we were past an hour, I was like, I would steal you for too long. I would steal you for too long. If I left that till the end, you would just text your wife saying, "Honey, I need you to unplug the Ethernet cord."
You will not see me.
No. It'd be like, I need an escape out of here. You need to be my wingman.
Good, because it's funny because I've actually had people contact me and say, "Can you say this in Magnus's voice and do the Magnus thing of when he's selling all the PlayStation Home stuff to people?" And I I thought that's what it was going to be, so I'm delightfully surprised that it was not. Okay, so what's my line?
I already forgot as well. Let me get back up. All right, so
professional. Very professional.
In his voice, take this however you will. No direction. You did a great job. Rest well.
Indeed. You did a great job. Rest well.
Oh, I got like butterflies from that. They gave me goosebumps and goose pimples. That was a great way.